Are you introing this?
Hey everyone, it's Fran here with my sister Meg. We're doing a bonus episode, extra. And today we're just gonna do some quick fire questions. And the questions are questions that Asian Americans always get asked. And we're just gonna go through these. Some are like, the things you can predict, like what are you? Like that kind of question. And then some really ridiculous ones from Yahoo questions.
Oh, I haven't used Yahoo questions in so long.
Yeah. Do you remember how ridiculous they got?
I used to post my homework questions there.
There are some ridiculous ones. Okay, are you ready? Oh, this could be quick fire. And Megan's going to always answer first. Actually, you're just going to answer and I'm going to bounce off of your answers. Okay. Here's the first one. What are you? Get asked that.
Yeah, I get asked that all the time. And actually, at my company, we were supposed to do intros whenever there's a new person. And I just like flat out addressed it. I was like, so people always ask me what kind of Asian I am. So I'm just going to clear it up right now. I'm Filipino. And like everyone started laughing, but like I feel like they all knew like, yeah, that's like what I was going to ask you.
Yeah. So I get asked that in various forms. So what are you is one. The other one is like, people just come up to me sometimes and like they name multiple Asian countries like Chinese, Korean, Thai. Or like, that's the worst, but like some people are like, you're Thai, right? Like I can tell, like, or whatever. Like name an Asian country and they're like, yes, that's you, right? Sometimes they're right. They're like, you're Filipino. I can tell. And I'm like, yes. I don't know. I don't know if they want some kind of award or like, I don't know.
But you can tell they're just like listing all the Asian countries they know from like their geographical knowledge and just like waiting until they get it right. Not really that they can tell, that they're just kind of like, okay, let me go to my internal list of like, here are the Asian countries I know.
It depends. Sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's just like, you know what? I think I can tell what Asian you are, like, because you don't look like someone that's stereotypically, because, people have a stereotype in their heads.
Yeah.
And of course they don't mean not well. Like, of course they're not trying to be racist on purpose, but it's a racist question. So I'm just like, good for you. I don't know what the point was. That's what I am.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, and then sometimes that question is followed up with like, oh, you're Filipino. Yeah, like one of my best friends is like Filipino, dude.
Yeah, like finding some kind of connection.
Yeah, it's like cool. It's like one of my best friends is white, dude. Like fucking
That's the best response.
I don't know. I never say that, but I'm just like, I never know what to say to that. I'm just like, really? Like fake like interest, like really? Cool. Anywho, I don't know if you've ever gotten asked this one, but can you say my name in your language?
Not name, because the name would be the same, but just like, yeah, like just a very simple phrase. Yeah.
Yeah. I've never gotten name either, but if we got that, it would just be like, it would be the same
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's question.
But I've gotten asked like, say this in your language or say this. And I'm like, I'm not going to perform. I don't know. I usually don't do it. I come up with an excuse, but yeah. Oh, I have never gotten this. Do you eat dog?
Yeah, you're kind of being chopped off, by the way. You're a little choppy.
Oh, really? Oh, it says my internet connection's unstable.
Aww.
Oh, wait, let me pause it. One sec. I've never gotten asked this. Do you eat dog? I've heard it of other Asians.
Actually, yeah, I feel like I have gotten asked that a couple of times just because like they didn't know what kind of Asian I was, and they're just like, if you don't know what kind of Asian, just go to like Chinese or something. It's like their default, like the default Asian.
Yeah. I know, that's really kind of an insulting question. Do you speak another language? Yeah, I've gotten asked that before.
Another language aside from
English. It does. I think the thing about this question is that it assumes that you're not from here, like if you're an Asian who was born here, like you just happen to have you're just an Asian American, and like you don't necessarily speak another language. Like I know Asian Americans who only speak English. But I don't know
Right.
this. But yeah, I've gotten asked that, and I just happen to, I happen to know another language. So
yeah. Yeah, I think the problem is the assumption of like you're from somewhere else, completely forgetting the fact that many people are born.
right,
You know.
right.
Yeah.
What about this? Have you gotten asked this? You don't look Asian. You have really big eyes. Are you actually half?
Yeah, I got that before.
Really?
Yeah.
What did you
Or
say?
just something along the lines of, oh, you don't look X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. You don't look fully Asian. What?
Yeah.
What are you?
I'm just like, well, I
in?
am.
Yeah, it's a lot of comments on how we look.
Yeah. I just like, usually when I respond to these things, it's just very awkward and factual. Like, well, I am.
Yeah. So we have like a Slack channel at work, just us Asian Americans and Asians, and someone asked that question up, like, someone asked the question, are people here often asked like what are they or where are they from, like ethnicity wise? And then almost everyone said yes, they ask where I'm from, meaning ethnicity, not because like when one of them answers Brooklyn, they're like, but where are you really from? Which I get asked all the time. And then someone else said like, yeah, it's annoying, but they're always coming from a place of curiosity. And I'm like, I wanted to respond, but I didn't because I didn't want to start an argument. But it's like, yeah, maybe they're curious, but that doesn't make the question any less offensive. It's still an offensive question just because like that's something people have been conditioned to like be okay with asking Asian Americans or other people of color. Doesn't mean it's okay to just, ask like, bro, where are you really from? So just because like someone means well doesn't mean this is something that can be conditioned out of. That person can be conditioned out of. Well, that's systemic racism for you.
I think like a good way to respond is just to reverse the question back at them. Like after I answer, okay, I'm really from the Philippines. What about you? Where are you really from?
I know. BuzzFeed actually did a video on that where the Asian American person then asked the white person, where are you really from? Like where in like Europe? Like where are you really from?
Yeah. Just to like make them realize how awkward it is and just like yeah.
I think a couple of my coworkers were like, I just often just say where I'm from like repeatedly, like Brooklyn until they change the question to be like, what's your ethnicity? Then that's a more honest question. Still uncalled for, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're gonna do some ridiculous ones. Okay. How come, this is from Yahoo questions, how come Asians never assimilate into American society? They speak Asian and they don't hang out with people who aren't the same race as them. They
speak Asian.
They drive Asian made cars. They eat Asian food. Yeah.
Who the fuck is this person?
You know what? It's a fucking ridiculous question, but in the past I've gotten that where like one of my friends was like, but yeah, Asians like us always are in a group, like on campus, like they're always together. Like, I don't understand. Like, why are they always like clumped together like that? And back then I didn't know what to answer. I'm just like, I don't know. Basically she was implying that like they're kind of being a little racist in the sense that like they don't want to hang out with white people, like because they're always clumped together, like the Asians. They're always like speaking Chinese to each other and like they're always just clumped together. That was the implication. And it's like, I don't know. What would you respond to that? It's like,
I would again reverse it and be like, well, how come you like when white people gather together, there's no question
right,
about
exactly.
it.
Well, it just all of these questions go back to race being a construct. If like race was something made by this like white person like hundreds of years ago just to like make some races better than others. Like if we never had race as a construct, if Asians were gathered together in a clump, no one would be like, oh, look at that group of Asians gathered in a clump. Whereas like the default race, white,
Yeah.
when they clump together, it's no one bats an eye.
I love how you're using the word clump.
Well, it's like you look at the Asian people as a clump, but when you look at white people clumped together, they're not looked at as a clump. They're just like,
That's such a nasty word.
it's just like, oh, look, it's just a random group of white people, like a random group of people, not even white, because like white is the default race.
Exactly. Yeah. No one questions the default.
Yeah.
And so that's why like these dumbass questions are arising, because something is out of the norm.
Yep. Because the norm is the white race.
Yeah.
So I think these are so ridiculous. I don't want to read any of
I just
these.
love how the person was like, why do they speak Asian? It's like me telling them, why do you speak Caucasian? Why do you speak Caucasian? Explain that.
Okay, I'm going to read a ridiculous one. Why do I love Asians? I secretly wish I was Asian, and I just love Asians so freaking much. That's literally the question. I don't know what that means because there's no context at all. Like, are you in love with the culture? Like, I had a friend who was like obsessed with Korean culture. Like, she would just consume Korean food, K-pop, like, go to Korean restaurants.
See, that's the thing. It's like a specific Asian country. Which Asian country are you talking about? Because they're all so
exactly
different.
like at least she like specified like Korean and Japanese, which is like it shouldn't be race. It should be like I really like this country's culture, you know. But I don't know what that question means because I don't have any context. But if we're gonna go by our own experience, I've dated a dude who was like into Asians. Like I don't know how I feel about that. If a white dude only dates Asian women, at that point, I'm like I didn't know till like I went out with a person that I was like, oh, you liked me immediately when I walked into the room because I was Asian. Like I don't know. That feels a little, and I don't know if you can clump it together with like I said clump again. Sorry, I don't know if you can like group it together with type. Like you know, like oh, my
yeah,
type-
I'm just gonna say that it's like a weird territory because I understand people having types. Like that's just the thing. But I would be like a little disturbed and always thinking about that if I was dating.
I understand types in that my type. I talked about it, and you should listen to that podcast, by the way, that I recorded alone because it was freaking sad. Because I was talking to myself. But one of the questions I answered was like, "Oh, what are your turn-ons?" And like, I have physical turn-ons. It's like dark hair, you know, like a good smize. Like if you have a good smize, yeah, I'm into that. But like, if it's Asian as a type, I don't, because there's so many different kinds of Asians. Just like there are so many different kinds of white people, there are so many different kinds of Asians. Because so you can't just be like Asians are my type. Like that's
a good
weird.
point.
I don't know. I don't feel good about it.
Yeah.
Have you dated anyone like that? It's like
no, actually, and I'm glad I haven't really gone through that experience. I'm actually like with me and Mo, I'm the first Asian he's ever been with ever. So that's kind of refreshing.
Really? What? Oh, should I ask you?
You can. I mean, you can even ask Mo. I'm sure he'd be open to talking about it.
I mean, if we do the part 2, we could do that. Like,
we can talk about race and stuff. And that'd be really interesting.
Frequently asked question. I think it's like, oh, do you have like a like? I think race as a type is frequently encountered in apps, right? So I think that's like a fair question. I don't know. Some of these questions just don't make sense. So I'm not even, but there is one question like related to, I'm just going to rephrase it, but like Asians being good at math. It's like, are you good at math? Or like some variant of that.
I'm actually happy when I receive that stereotype from someone because I will happily disprove it. I'm like, I am the worst at math. I
Okay,
am absolute
really? So you've
worst.
gotten it not recently, but you've gotten it.
Well, yeah, I've gotten it like several points in my life, and
Yeah.
I'm actually glad to receive it because I can educate that person. Like I am the living proof of like not. I am horrible at math. You know?
Yeah. But then they're like, oh, but you're the exception, right? The rule. I don't even know. Whatever. Yeah, I've gotten that too. And then like, there's you're a bad Asian. Ha 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 ha. Like you're not gonna math. Ha ha ha. I'm a bad Asian. I mean, sometimes Asians make that joke. Like we're like some of the worst perpetuators of these stereotypes. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, like I'm not a good Asian. I'm like bad at math. Like I've said that, and it's like I need to stop saying that because that's a racist thought.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it's 15 minutes, so we can stop. But anyway, those are just. But I'm not even gonna start about like the food. Like the food, for example. It's like, what are you eating? It smells weird, and it looks gross. It's like related to the dog. Like, do you eat dog? It's like related to that. It's like if you're Asian, you must eat weird foods that smell weird, and
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So stuff like that. Before we close this, I just recommend everyone to read How to Be Anti-Racist. I mentioned it in this podcast before, but Ibram X. Kendi. It not just goes into how to be anti-racist, but it dismantles the race construct very, very methodically. Like there's just no way you wouldn't be able to understand race after you read it, and like how it's a construct in like different ways, biologically, just colorism, like every aspect of it, he like delineates in such thorough fashion.
Mm-hmm.
And it would help you like sort of dismantle some of these questions, like if you ever encounter them again. So 10 out of
Cool.
10 would wreck. Any final words, or did I miss any questions that you've gotten asked before we close this?
No, I think those are pretty much the standard ones that I get.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun times.
That's pretty thorough.
Okay, everyone, that was random, but hopefully it enlightened you a little bit. Maybe we'll do a part 2 if I can dig up some more.
Yeah. And if y'all have any other questions, I mean, if you couldn't tell, we're pretty open to answering whatever.
Yeah.
So just
like if you're Asian and you're like, can you talk about this? Because I encounter it all the time. Like, just let us know.
Yeah, just let us know, bruh.
Let us know, bruh. Okay. Till the next bonus episode. See y'all later.
Bye.